The last meeting. Full Council agreed at its last meeting to defer two motions that were listed in the summons for the meeting for consideration at this meeting, as the guillotine for the meeting had been reached. Motion from Councillor Cannon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Tonight I bring before you a motion regarding the Essex County Council's approval of a further waste facility in the Pitsea North West ward. In order to highlight the areas of concern, I must take the Chamber back to the environmental statement for the Coulthard Road MBT facility.
Hold on. Okay. Go on, what's the matter?
Just indicating I want to speak when he's finished. Calm down.
Sorry. In order to highlight the areas of concern, I must take the Chamber back to the environmental statement for the Coulthard Road MBT facility. Please be mindful of the theme detrimental cumulative impact as I talk about my concerns. The environmental statement highlighted three key areas: traffic, air quality and health impact. All of these subjects have the potential to degrade the lives of residents in close proximity to the facility. When considering the effects on traffic within the area, we can now expect an additional 200 HGV journeys, bringing a total of 500 HGV movements a day, identified in the MBT facility environmental statement. These additional 200 journeys will add to the noise, dust and air pollution for local residents. Odour is a subject also covered under the air quality heading, and in the environmental statement for the MBT facility and the sewage works were considered for the cumulative impact. Now we have a situation where there are likely to be three sources of odour, potentially causing discomfort for Pitsea North West residents. Lastly, let me mention health. It was deemed that the waste facilities in Coulthard Road would result in minor or slight adverse permanent stress to local residents. Therefore, an additional facility is likely to increase any stress, thus affecting health. Some of you tonight might think it wrong of me to mention the word compensation, but from my 9 months as a councillor, I have come to understand that Essex County Council only listen when there is a risk of spending money. So I mentioned compensation as we are now getting a new waste facility before we know the full impact on residents' health and well-being from the first year of operating the MBT facility. I quote a resident from the recent newspaper article, Mr. D. Copeland. He said, "We get the smoke coming in our direction from across the road all the time and it is horrendous." I would like to finish with one more quote. In a newspaper article under a rare picture of our council leader, Councillor Turner, he said, "We've got Coulthard Road and that should be enough. After many, many years of having a landfill site, other people need to step up. I don't think that's unfair, unjust or unreasonable." End of quote. I do not think it is unfair, unjust or unreasonable that the residents of Hofields and all of Pitsea North West be afforded proper consideration and care from Essex County Council. I ask for your support in sending this message to Essex County Council. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Have you seconded? Yep. Can I?
Thank you, Mayor. Basildon is now the place for waste in Essex. Not something to be proud of and a reputation now hard to change. The total input tonnage for the Toby Eco Park in Basildon for the months November and December last year was 33,500 tonnes. This is still in the commissioning stage and does not include 70,000 tonnes for the newly approved facility which Gary was speaking of, which will include 5,000 tonnes of asbestos-bearing waste. We passed a motion at this council on the 16th of April last year, and I will quote from it. This council resolves to make representations to Essex County Council to express our concerns at the extent of the current waste facilities located in the Basildon Borough. request a full review of the current waste facilities in Basildon to be undertaken by Essex County Council in conjunction with this council to assess the collective detrimental effects of their facilities, agree remedial actions and arrangements, and to develop an agreement between Essex County Council and Basildon Council on specific protocols to be followed in relationship to any further proposals for waste facilities located within the Basildon Borough. End quote. And Basildon did include this statement in its response to the draft local waste plan. I am a member of the Development and Regulation Committee at Essex County Council. At the committee meeting on the 27th of November last year at County Hall, this last application was considered. Under consultations, and I will quote, Bowen, Gifford and North Benfleet Parish Council object, and then they gave their reasons. Basildon Borough Council, no objections and have not requested any infrastructure improvements. For me, this was like going into a fight with both arms tied behind your back. I did try to get formal support from our planners, but was unsuccessful. My closing remark to the committee at County Hall was, would you like to lift 75 metres from an asbestos waste facility? Silence. The only vote against this facility at County Hall, I was the only one voting against this facility at County Hall. Even the Green Party member abstained. Shame on him. Some support from my council would have been greatly appreciated. It does appear that we are simply going through motions at this council. They carry very little weight and there is no follow-up or updates provided by this administration. They simply choose to continually operate on a business-as-usual approach with minimal, if any, action taken. We must consider the detrimental effects to the health and well-being of the residents of Hopefields. It is not acceptable for us, as a council, to allow the lives of these residents to be trampled on through no fault of their own. Members, I urge you to send a message to this administration and Essex County Council and support this motion. Thank you, Mayor.
Can I call Councillor Tony Headley, please?
My apologies, Mr Mayor. I am also a county councillor and will have voted at county on a number of policy decisions. Although I don't sit on the waste panel, I just want to indicate that I will have to abstain on this vote.
Councillor David Dance.
Mr Mayor, I will be supporting the motion, but I sort of put down perhaps some markers. The position is that if the councillor has complaints from residents of Pixley regarding odours, smells, or any matters that impact on the environment, I hope that he's already made that complaint to our own environmental health officers, and I hope that he will share that information with the council to see what our officers have done regarding that, because clearly there is the Environmental Protection Act and everyone has to comply with that, and we have a statutory duty to ensure the residents are protected. So in relation to the allegation of excessive noise and smell pollution, of course I would support the motion that Essex County Council do look at that, do an assessment whether the complaint is correct, validated, and take the appropriate action. I don't, in principle, have a problem with a facility as long as that facility is operating within the confines of the law regarding pollution and odours, to ensure that the residents of the Pixley are not affected.
Can I call Councillor Amanda Arnold, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'm scribbling away. I was hoping somebody else might speak so I could scribble a bit more. I am going to support this motion because we have the experience, unfortunately, in Pixley South East of the facility in Terminus Drive, having once been refused planning permission after operating without planning permission now being granted. And I have to say that the roundabout there is an absolute nightmare, having been almost run off the road several times by lorries that don't stop at the roundabout. I think that this motion is about our residents, and to be honest, we are becoming the dumping ground of Essex, and I would agree with the UKIP councillors over there that it's about time that it stopped. Everybody knows that the waste has to be dealt with, and it has to be dealt with somewhere, but it shouldn't be to the detriment of Basildon residents every single time. So I will support this motion, and I thank you for bringing it.
Councillor Stephen Ward, please.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor, and totally agree with him, and I'm sure that the other Pittsey South East Council would agree with that as well. I'll also be moving to this. I'd also just like to state that the Pittsey North West Residents Association has supplied the council with lots of information in relation to your earlier statement. It's a very proactive, non-supported organisation of residents who continuously report everything, as well as some of the residents in Pittsey South East.
Can I ask Councillor Andy Baggett, please?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I was minded to support the councillor, then Councillor Ellis almost took me out of it. Because as an ex-ward member for Pittsey North West, in the administration, I and colleagues here, for 8 years have been fighting Essex County Council, tooth and nail with regard to the development of the waste facility there. We had many meetings, some of which unfortunately fell on deaf ears and some that didn't. I and our MP attended many meetings with regard to this issue. We also went to their scrutiny to actually take up. Councillor Sargent accompanied me, residents accompanied me, and for 8 years, as I say, we have constantly fought for the residents in that part of Pittsey. I am sure that Councillor Callaghan has continued that fight once he took over from me. I can't be sure exactly what he's done, but I'm sure that he has, in fact, fought the corner as well. So I am going to support this motion, but I just want to set the record straight. The idea that this is a lesson to the administration on how to represent resident Pittsey, I'm afraid that particular aspect of Councillor Ellis' speech doesn't wash. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor David Harrison.
I totally agree with the motion that's put forward tonight, because they were dumping rubbish in Basildon way back, and members over there, two of the members over there at least will remember. Years and years ago, it has continued. Basildon has become a dumping ground for Essex, and I'm afraid that county councillors of North Essex have loved pushing it all this way. And I think it's time to actually say something. As far as it affects Pittsey South, that side of A127, forget the A127, smells and that drift across into Councillor Jackman's ward and my ward, and those people there can be affected as well. So I think it's a good motion, and I will be supporting it.
Councillor Terry Sargent.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Mr Mayor. In response to Councillor Ellis's claim that the council did not respond or make comments, the council, by way of David Lewis, did respond on the 30th of July, on behalf of Councillor Richard Moore. And there was a number of things. You know, I've got the comments here that he actually read out. We need to understand, as Councillor Baggett has alluded to, that Basildon has always objected to any proposals of the waste facility, regardless of further waste facilities here in Basildon. We even attended the planning application for Courtauld Road. There was a number of us, including Councillor Hillier. We went up there. In fact, I was cut off because I went over time when I was speaking on it. And I would have thought that there was a number of Essex County councillors here that are, from Pittsey, that would have you know, that would have been at that meeting to object to this proposal, because it's not right. I mean, I will, on behalf of the officer, get this to go to opposition members, because it's not right to make a claim against an officer who did his very best and has actually said that the consultation between Essex and the Basildon Borough wasn't that great, and there is a duty to cooperate. But one thing that we must always remember is that we are the waste collection. It's the county council that's waste disposal, and these facilities are about disposing of waste. And because it's all in the waste management plan, that's out of our control. All we can do is object, and that's what we have done for many, many years, and we continue to object. So I'm sure that the members on my side will be objecting to this yet again. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Stephen Hillier.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Harrison raises an interesting point about years of waste coming down here. I mean, for centuries, waste from London had been coming down the Thames, right? And it's got as far as us and it's not going any further, it seems. And in fact, to call the Pitsea landfill just as a misnomer, it's never filled any land, it's just built a great big hill where there was no land. So, I mean, I think that is the ongoing problem. And in 2002, when the Conservatives took control of the council and I was the cabinet member, there were 3 waste sites being proposed in county: Sandon, Rivenhall and Basildon. And then one of them dropped out, the Sandon one dropped out, and yeah, I kept pressing. I know Councillor Sargent, who followed me in that portfolio, also kept pressing. And in fact, I went to the open day at the Rivenhall site, and you know, they consulted every resident within half a kilometre of that site. All 13 houses were consulted, right? It was in a dip. It would have been a far better site than this one, and yet county decided that no, it's got to come down to Basildon. And that was on the assumption that all the other authorities would have their transfer sites. Now I understand there are some authorities that still have not got transfer sites in. And I think that along the line, County Council have not done us any favours whatsoever. But there is just a couple of points in addition I would like to make. There is a liaison committee with the current operator there. And I would hope that some of these issues have been taken up through that liaison committee, because that must be the right road in which to take these issues. And just a couple of other things regarding smells. Well, these plants tend to operate at negative pressure. In other words, the air is always going into the buildings, not coming out. And anybody who went up to Leicester with us is quite clear that there is no smell outside. And I went to Barcelona, you stood outside the factory and out of the plant, and there was no smell at all. Inside it was horrendous. Right? So these things do work on negative pressure. And in my years when I was the portfolio holder, I kept saying to members of the county council, if there are smells in that area, you will get the blame. And they tended to disregard that there's a water treatment plant right next door, which emits all sorts of noxious smells. And the other thing, just to point out, that members will probably seen as they drive along the 127 that there is a flue there that seems to have a great big cloud of something out the top. Well, these plants these days are not allowed to emit anything other than carbon dioxide and water. And the fact that there is a cloud there means that it's relatively low temperature, like your balanced boilers at home. In the old boilers that were very hot, you didn't get condensation outside the boiler, it went off down the road before it condensed. These days, because they're cooler, it condenses immediately to the point. So the big flume there is likely to be just water and carbon dioxide. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
The last speaker tonight is Councillor Phil Turner.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, no surprise by now, you've heard the Conservative ranks say that we will be supporting the motion. However, linguistic, some of these questions that come through in 1, 2 and 3 exert pressure just does not do it. Exert pressure, what does that mean? If we're going to pick the phone up and say, don't do it again. I mean, this is just a nonsense. County don't understand this language. It's too woolly. And I haven't got time to amend it, to be honest. Because the reality is this. Quite insulted by Councillor Ellis's claim that this administration's not doing anything. Get your facts right. This administration has stood up for Basildon Borough on the waste proposal time and time again. Time and time again. I'm not interested. Time and time again. We've actually made quite an art of cheesing off the county simply by their affront to Basildon. They don't understand. You can be nice to them, you can talk to them, you can have meetings with them. They won't understand the language. Let me put it in simple terms. We are a willing partner in devolution. Let's see if County want to propose another waste site in Basildon. It will be the quickest exit from that proposal you have ever seen. That's the language they understand.
Basildon speaking.
Exactly. We've fought for residents time and time again. And I've made no qualms about being a unitary, and it's for this reason. While you're not a unitary, your destiny is not in your own hands. So the UKIP can try and grandstand on this proposal, but I'm sorry, you're late to the party. And in another couple of years, you may not even be here at all. What will actually happen is it will be left to those that have carried on this fight for decades. And that's what we continue to do. Please don't come with sloppy motions. We will be supporting it. The message is clear with County. We need to keep reinforcing that, and that's what we do. Thank you.
Right, we now come to a vote. Can I ask... Sorry, Councillor Canham, do you wish to wind up, or...?
That's fine, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. We'll move straight to the vote, though. All those in favour, please show. Sorry, the motion is carried. We'll now move on to the